We live in the year 2023. We have been to the moon, can create a truckload of advanced AI, and I became a Gran Turismo world champion. The impossible is non-existent anymore. So how come some parts of racing games have been stuck in ancient times, as it seems? The most obvious are open world racing games. What my serious problems with the genre are, and how dire the situation really is coming up now. And with that, welcome back to OverTake. To understand my problems with open world racing games, we first have to take a look into the past and see what made these games so special. Then talk about the current problems, and in the end offer an important rescue plan for anyone planning to release such a game in the future. When talking about real open world racing games, the first that come to mind are Midtown Madness and Midnight Club 1. But don't get confused, the only thing mid was their name. Midnight Club 1 started off with a broad map of New York and London. It was a real shakeup for the industry, which had previously only seen menus guiding us from event to event. While of course only serving rudimentary purposes in terms of functionality, this was the starting shot for a series of great titles which followed. NFS Underground 2 and the predecessor to the Midnight Club series, as well as Test Drive Unlimited 1, all upped the standard for open world games by a mile. Underground 2 brought authenticity and a much slower pace to the game in order to enjoy the open world. Midnight Club 2 and 3 had some of the most interactive maps of their time, with stuff to do on every corner, and Test Drive Unlimited 1 was a behemoth of a game with a gigantic map that revolutionized the character aspect of racing games as well. These three games also had one thing in common. They all pushed each other and their respective devs to new heights, innovating and rethinking with every release. Looking back at it, you could call this the golden age of open world racing, and that even though the technical limitations of the time were very, very real, it was something truly exciting. If you want to see a more detailed analysis on how this time played out, there's an awesome video by fellow YouTuber Hokihashi, which encompasses a lot of extra information and context. As you can see, I am a fan of all of this. I've put countless hours into Need for Speed Underground 2, simply driving around, and I still am amazed at what TDU 1 and 2 did at their time. Something we also have to mention is Burnout Paradise, which was my favorite racing game for the better part of a decade. Had a very refined open world, although not being very innovative, but creating some lasting memories when it came to open world fun for the entire player base. However, a lot of stuff changed over the years, and not for the better, unfortunately. As with everything, it is a bit tough to exactly pinpoint where this genre has gone downhill, but one thing is for sure. Across the early 2010s, there was no Midnight Club, Open World NFS, or TDU anymore. The sole claim to open world fame went through one franchise only, Forza Horizon. While up to this point being mainly known for producing the Xbox pendant to Gran Turismo, the Forza franchise branched out into the open worldness with its first iteration of Horizon. The approach was simple: combine open world driving with actually good physics and racing. Because up until this point, open world racing games revolved mainly around the actual landscape and interacting with the drivable surroundings, rather than having the crispiest of racing action. Forza flipped that approach and served a more bare-bone open world, but turned into a seriously fun racer with Horizon. And at this point, a trend started to form. You see, at the release of the first Horizon, the open world competition had not just taken a hiatus from producing them, they largely vanished from the market entirely. Eden Games went out of business after TDU 2, Rockstar started production on the best open world racer known to date, and EA, well, this caused a kind of power vacuum for the Forza franchise, and the more limited approach to open world interaction continued. And with it, the need for innovation pretty much stopped entirely. With every new open world racing title, you could clearly see that playability had to make way for functionality. Scaling down stuff like spontaneous races against AI in the open world, discovering places to improve your car or start a side quest, and additional tasks that may revolve more around the world itself. This of course increased the pace of the game, making it quicker and more convenient for you to enter the end game, but also massively took away the ability to lose yourself and immerse into the playable world. Because as the pace accelerated, the connection from players to their surroundings crumbled. It also marks a crucial turning point in the player experience, because in the years since, it has become more apparent than ever that racing game devs don't trust their player base to figure out anything at all. Alongside an accelerated playstyle, style, players now get bombarded with goodies and pop-ups from the start. But I will talk about that a bit more later on in the video. So this went on for years to come. In the meantime, the first and second The Crew title tried to bring the innovation back to the genre, at least in terms of map size, but at the same time did not have nearly the same amount of interaction that TDU nearly had a decade earlier. The pinnacle of this development was eventually reached with Forza Horizon 5, a game so highly praised by outlets and reviewers that it showed the tragic reality of the open world racing situation. The genre got streamlined and nickeled down, while it should have been furthered and adapted to the advancement of current times. But nobody cares. At least I thought so. But whilst reviewing The Crew Motorfest, I realized how much this really messes with me and how boring I find the current open worlds. So I asked if you felt the same way and got so many positive responses that resonated with me. This really motivated myself to tell you all the problems I have with the genre, and especially why one thing has to change very soon. After years of being rationalized, open worlds are a shadow of their former selves, oftentimes only appearing in the game to look the part and make up for cool cinematic trailers, to get people interested in the purchase. If you look at some of the most recent open worlds, you will know what I mean. Need for Speed Unbound had the imaginary city of Lakeshaw. Since this title was very much focused on story, a lot of what you could do on the map had something to do with it. Pickup jobs, crew houses, and finally beating the police. A feature that worked immaculately in the past and actually increases the intrigue of a map a lot, because it's interactive. Unfortunately, having this as your only element aside from smashable teddy bears does not carry a game's world over the line. The story is the main selling point, and not in one scenario did I think, boy, let's just go out and drive for a bit and see what comes my way. The same goes for The Crew Motorfest, but to the power of 5. A game so finely tuned to be fun and filled with all sorts of cool car history, amazingly has one of the most bland open worlds I can remember. Legit, only the spontaneous loot boxes are inviting you to do any sort of exploring. And inviting is a stretch phrase here. And what about Forza Horizon 5? Aside from ruining the crop of Mexican farmers, is there anything memorable about this game's open world? It doesn't even have the changing seasons of Forza Horizon 4. They even scaled down the stuff they only introduced a title earlier. All of them share the main problem of the open world just being a means to the end. A cinematic backdrop for you to travel from point A to B. A sales argument that is used to impress players at first glance and really spark their interest in finding out all about this place, only to deliver nothing at the end. The fatal flaw in this logic, of course, is that there's nothing to do. You as a player quickly notice that, and within a few hours, the beautiful drive from one side of a map to another starts to become a chore and skip-worthy. Another aspect is that in order to reach maximum functionality, racing games just throw these supercars your way as early as the goddamn selection of your starting vehicles now. Even if there were ways to explore the map and find yourself tasks to win cars, for example, or even find whole cars like in Horizon 5 or TDU, why bother? I got this Mercedes concept car after 2 hours of playing. Why would I ever switch to the legendary Renault Clio now? You wanna know what's the really saddening part? The best open world racing game in the past 15 years is probably GTA 5, a game which may carry car in its name but doesn't have a racing focus. Of course, the game is just naturally very interesting outside of the open world, but in no current racing title has anyone lost themselves in a cinematic drive or street race as much as here. Even small details like narrow roads, car damage, and dense traffic just add to the overall quality of life when it comes to driving in GTA 5. And don't pretend racing games have not tried to force social components and the corresponding events into their core. The Crew, Forza, and even NFS are halfway online anyway, but none of them give us something like interactable buildings, co-op missions aside from box standard racing, or real character development through world interaction. You wanna know what's the best open world racing game in recent time? Lego 2K Drive. No joke, filled with stuff to do, every corner brings something new, and you feel like there's a purpose for everything. This open world checks all the boxes, and bonus points are there for interactable terrain. Yeah, let it be known, 2K created a better racing game than Playground, Ubisoft, and EA while using Lego. But as dooming as that all sounds, there are 5 subtle things devs can do to steer everything back into the right direction. The one thing that has to go, in my opinion, is this mantra that functionality beats everything when it comes to open world. Being a fast-paced game that just showers the player with everything without having them work for it isn't the way to move forward. At least if you want to continue to make open world games. Put Horizon aside for a second, as the series has pretty much been built upon being open world, but be honest with me for a second. Do NFS Unbound or Motorfest need an open world to exist? Aren't they cool games with engaging stuff in them, which only gets worse by the criticism that comes their way for featuring a nothing burger of a map? So step 1 would be to slow everything down again. Make the overall pace of the game more grindy and put a focus on goals which work in combination with the map. Make the overall progression harder and give the world its dedicated plazas and places back. Don't just hide it all in one menu. Go TDU style and make dealerships walkable by foot, increase the social components by creating the need to form bonds with places, and create a character for yourself and the map around you. Step 2 is a simple fix. For one game, try and make events explorable again. Take the playlists of the crew, for example. Wouldn't it be cool if you drove across the island and stumbled upon an unmarked village? And in that village, there is maybe a mini playlist to unlock a car that is not up for purchase? Have 5 or 6 of those across the island, and bam, you created curiosity and served it as well. Step 3 is a bit more controversial, and I cannot see it happening in current times. But I would love for at least some games to have the constant need for online play to be removed. I get it, in theory it's cooler to have drivatars roaming around the street, but it never works as intended, takes away some of the actual existing traffic, and is almost annoying when you just want to enjoy a drive around. Step 4 is more of a plead. Devs, if you don't have a plan for an open world or a concept on how to integrate it, just leave it out. This way, the games that actually dedicate to it can deliver, and you can just infinitely decrease game time by as much as you want. Funnily enough, cutting out the open world would increase functionality even more for them. Just make it race to race from menu to menu and be done with the game in 6 hours. This way you can release 3 times a year instead of forcing these abysmally low-life worlds onto us that are nothing short of a waste of resources. And finally, step 5. Try to be innovative again. It has been a good decade since you've done that. Take a year more to develop your title. Make it extra cool and special. Try to make the player feel like they're a part of a world again and not just a sandbox A to B simulator. If you can do that, open world games can have a future, and a bright one at that. I did speak a lot about the Crew Motorfest. If you want to gain a better picture on how the rest of the game looks like, my review is still pretty fresh. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheerio.